guys, welcome back to Sip and Dip with Chelsea. For today's video, I'm going to be showing you 3 dip powder designs. One of them is going to be how to do a solid color ombre, so I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to get that seamless, beautiful blend. I'm also going to be doing that super trendy dark aura nail, and I feel like I've stumbled upon greatness with this one because it's not going to stain your skin, it's not going to be messy, and it is so easy to do. The last one I'm naming an angled French tip because honestly I don't know what else to call it, but it's just that beautiful, classy design with a twist. So my dip powder besties, let's dive in. Thank you so much Azure Beauty for sponsoring today's video. Y'all, let's open up and play with this kit. These colors are just so my jam. It comes with the liquids. You're going to get a dusting brush, a cuticle pusher, and of course all of these beautiful shades. My biggest piece of advice I can give when doing a solid color ombre is to find shades with the same undertones. So these two are going to blend really seamlessly. That's why I picked these particular two. I've got my base liquid here, and then I've also gone ahead and grabbed 2 separate eyeshadow brushes. We do need to move quickly when we're doing this design, so have everything out and ready. I've got my brushes with each of their shades. I've got my base liquid here so we can get started. I remove the excess product on my brush, and then I'm going to do a full layer of the base liquid across my entire nail. Then I quickly dip my brush into the powder. With my finger laying flat, I work side to side from my free edge, just slowly working my way back, just doing small taps on my brush, and then you'll see I'm going sidewall to sidewall, rolling my finger. I like to leave my finger flat because I feel like it gives me more control over the powder instead of angling it. And once I'm happy with it, you'll see I get all the way over to that sidewall edge. I'm going to tap the excess powder in a downward motion because we don't want that powder to go back into the other section of our nail. Here's how it's looking. So I'm going to quickly now get started on the other half of the nail before the powder dries. So dipping my brush into the powder, working from up at my cuticle area down to the center. It doesn't have to be precise on this part because I'm more so worried about just getting that powder on the nail before it dries. Then tapping off the excess down in a downward motion. Here's our first layer. Once it's dry, I'm going to use a different dusting brush to dust it all off. So this is layer number 1. Now for layer number 2, we're going to alternate the shades. So now we're going to start with the lighter shade first and then the darker shade. This is going to help give more of a seamless blend and not a harsh line. So we're going to do another full layer of our base liquid across the entire nail and dip into our lighter shade. So starting up at my cuticle area, I've got my finger flat. You'll notice again, I work sidewall to sidewall and slowly working my way towards the center of the nail. I am going to let this shade overlap a little bit onto the darker area. Again, that's just to help it give more of a seamless blend. Once I'm happy with it, then I'm going to tap off that excess again back towards the back of my nail. See how it goes back that way? We don't want to tap the excess powder off on the other half because that would totally ruin our whole design. So now we need to quickly get this darker shade on the nail. I'm just starting at that free edge, working my way back. I personally like to keep the brush really close to my nail because that gives me more control over the powder. If we hold our brush up higher, then the powder is definitely going to go out a little bit further and more sparse on the nail. So once I get it fully covered and I see all the liquid has powder on it, I tap off that excess. Once it's dry, then I can dust off the excess powder. And here's another little tip. If you're looking at this and you are not happy with it, you feel like there's a harsh line or you need some more color in a certain spot, then all you have to do is just dip your brush into the powder and gently scrub it on where you would like more of a blend or more of that color. Just be careful when you're doing this that you don't overdo it, but this is an easy way to just tighten up your ombre. Now the important part, we need to clear encapsulate to protect the design when we file shape and buff. So do another layer of your base liquid and dip into the clear powder. I love, love, love that this kit includes clear dip powder. Once it's dry, we dust off the excess and now we're going to activate. So apply a very generous layer of activator and wait 2 minutes for it to dry before we file shape and buff. Here's how it looks when I'm done. I'm going to dust it off and apply another layer of activator. We're going to wait 2 minutes again for this to dry. Then with a dry lint-free wipe, I rub it across the entire top surface to remove any excess residue. So now with my top coat, I do 3 quick strokes on the nail and let that dry. Then for the second layer, it's more precise, more detailed, getting to those sidewall areas and capping off my free edge. The top coat dries pretty quick, so within a couple minutes, I went ahead and added some cuticle oil, and here's how we're looking. I really do preach to practice on a swatch stick first. You can learn so much about the colors, how they're going to blend, if they're going to be compatible by just simply practicing beforehand. And of course, these two were a match made in heaven. So without further ado, y'all, let's move on to the next design. This design is definitely my favorite out of the three, and I chose these two shades for it. So normally when you're doing any sort of scrub ombre or an aura nail, you want to use your lighter shade first and scrub the more pigmented darker shade into it. However, today we're going to be doing it differently, but it's going to be so easy and it works beautifully. With my base liquid, I'm going to do another full layer across my entire nail and then dip into this stunning chocolate brown. You're going to see it is full coverage after one dip, so I could definitely stop here. However, I'm going to show you how it looks after two so you get the full effect. So after I dust it off, we're going to start on layer number two. Layer number two is going to be another full layer across the entire nail, dipping into the powder. Then I dust it off. Here is how stunning it looks after two dips. It's just beautiful. Now here's the secret, you guys. Add a layer of clear. Remember when I said it's easier to have your lighter shade as the base? That's the trick. Clear is going to be the easiest thing for us to scrub any pigment into. So by adding a layer of clear on this darker shade, it's going to allow us to then scrub a light shade into it. So I'll do another full layer of my base liquid across the nail and then dipping into the clear. It is very important that we make sure that this layer of clear is fully dry. So once we dust it off, we want it fully dry before we go in to scrub the next shade. So here's that beautiful light tan shade I've grabbed. I've got my dusting brush here, and I'm just going to sort of bunch the bristles together and do small little swirls right here in the center of the nail. You'll see it really does pop pretty quickly. So depending on what colors you do, just keep an eye on it. I'm keeping an eye right here in the center, and I start to do just little swipe motions, little swirls, and I'm focusing it in the center and just barely branching out. I'm going to stop for a second and dust off the excess so I can get a better picture on how it's looking. I see I do want to add more. A little piece of advice that I learned during my practice run was that when you're happy with it, go back and add more, because when I add the clear on top, it does soften it a tad bit. So if you do want that really bright pop of an aura nail, I suggest making sure when you're happy with it that you still add just a little bit more. Then if you're looking at this and you feel like you've gone a little bit too far on the sides, then you can use another brush and grab that darker shade, and we can just ever so slightly scrub it back into those sidewall areas. Totally optional, and of course be careful on your skin so you don't stain your skin, but this is just one way to help fix it. It's time to protect our design, so we're going to do a full layer of our base liquid. You can really see that design pop, and now dip into the clear dip powder. I just let it sit and absorb for a second. We want to make sure this is fully dry before we dust it off and add our layer of activator. So once you add your layer of activator, let that dry for 2 minutes before you file, shape, and buff. Now we can apply our second layer of activator and then let that dry for 2 minutes, and I like to use a dry lint-free wipe across the entire top surface just to remove any residue. Then with my top coat, I do 3 quick strokes on the nail, let that dry, and go in for the second layer. I think this design would also be so beautiful matte, so I'll have to try that next time. It's definitely my favorite one out of the 3. I can't wait to hear which one is y'all's. Doing the layer of clear on top makes this such a breeze, so easy to do, mess-free. Let's go dive into that third design. Y'all didn't think I wasn't going to do any glitter, right? I had to grab this one. It's just this beautiful chocolatey copper glitter. So here's a trick that I learned during my practice run again. I am okay with the glitter getting onto this solid shade. The glitter's also going to go up into the clear. If you don't like that, if you want them to stay harsh, straight lines, then I would suggest using tape. I would suggest doing the color block method. However, I love the way the glitter migrated onto the solid, and I love the way it sort of went into the clear. It softens it a bit, gives it a little bit more character, sort of like an ombre effect. So let me show you how to do it. Also got my clear here. Here's the order it's going to go. We're We're going to do our solid shade, then the glitter, then pour the clear over top. I'm going to add a full layer of my base liquid across the entire nail and then tapping my jar on the desk to level it out. We're going to dip at an angle into the jar. That's how we're going to get that angled, slanted look. Once you're happy with where it's at, we're going to ever so slightly and gently tap it off in a downward motion. Then moving quickly, I want to make sure I get the other powders on the nail before the liquid dries. So here's how it's looking. I grab that glitter jar now, following the same steps, dipping at an angle. So we're going to go past that solid shade. This is why the glitter gets onto it. And then we have to be very careful, tapping off ever so slightly and gently again in a downward motion so we don't move too much of that glitter, and then quickly pour the clear over top. Notice here, once I pour this clear over, I do not tap off all of the excess. I tap over here because look at all that glitter that just fell off. We don't want all of that in our clear. And once it's dry, I dust off the excess and start on layer number 2. So a full layer of my base liquid across the entire nail. I leveled out my jar again, and now I'm going to go at an angle. Once I see it line up with that first layer that I did, I'm using that as my guide. You can see it lines up beautifully. I gently tap it off, then grab that second jar, and once I see them line up with that one again, I stop right here. Then I'm going to ever so slightly and gently tap it off again, quickly getting the clear on top. Tap off that excess away from it. And that's it for the design part, you guys. It's so easy, super quick to do. We're going to pour our clear back into our jar so there's no waste. Dust off the excess powder and do a full layer across the design and then dip into the clear. So this is going to level it out, make sure it's protected when we file, shape, and buff. Now it's time for activator, so apply a generous layer of this and wait 2 minutes for it to dry. Then we can file, shape, and buff. Now we can do our second activator, so apply a generous layer of this, wait 2 minutes, then with the dry napkin, lint-free wipe, we're going to rub it across the entire top surface before we do our top coat. Top coat is the same 3 quick strokes on the nail, and then go in for your second layer. As I mentioned earlier, if you do not want the glitter to go everywhere, I would suggest doing a color blocking technique instead of a freehand design. However, I really like the way it just changed the entire feel of the solid color. You can see I have some in my clear, but it really gives it such a dainty look. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you Azure Beauty for sponsoring today's video. I hope that this gave you some inspo for maybe your next design. Don't be afraid to get started, dive right in, and I will see y'all next week.